Your children know how to work hard, or show up on time, and do what they're told. Congratulations, you raised an excellent employee. But nobody taught them how money moves without them. Nobody taught them how to own instead of just earn. She was 38 years old. 38! A grown woman with a job, a car, opinions about wine. And she called me on a Sunday afternoon, a Sunday of all days, to announce that she was going to put every dollar she had into some project a man she barely knew had pitched to her that week. She wasn't asking for my opinion. She had already decided. I was sitting in my green chair. Yes, green. Everything in my life is green. Get used to it. And I listened. I didn't interrupt. I waited. And when she finished talking, I asked her 3 questions. Do you know exactly how much you could lose? Do you have an exit plan if this falls apart? Have you actually looked at that company's financial statements? Silence. Not the angry kind, the empty kind. And in that silence, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Shame. Not at her, at myself. Because I realized right there on a Sunday with my green coffee cup getting cold that I had never, not once, taught her to ask those 3 questions. I had failed her, not as a mother, as a teacher of money. And that's a different kind of failure. That one follows you. I've been asking myself the same question for 20 years, and I still don't have a clean answer. Why do we spend so much energy teaching our children to be good and almost none teaching them to be free? And I don't mean free in some poetic, spiritual sense. I mean free in the most boring, practical, unglamorous way possible. The freedom to not need anyone's paycheck to survive the month. That kind of free. Now, before you decide I'm just some bitter old woman with too much jewelry and too many opinions, let me tell you who I am. I am 73 years old. I've been divorced for over 40 years, and I have never once regretted it. I have 2 adult children. One is 40, one is 48. I have 15 businesses generating income right now while I sit here talking to you. I have properties in multiple states. I wear green every single day of my life. Green coat, green shoes, green rings, all of it. Because money was the only thing that showed up for me when everything else left. I'm not saying that to impress you. I'm saying it so you understand that what I'm about to tell you did not come from a book. It came from 30 years of doing things wrong, then figuring out how to do them right, then doing them right until they worked. What I'm going to say today will irritate some of you. A few of you are going to close this video and go tell someone I'm crazy. That's fine. I've been called worse. But if you stay, if you actually stay, you're going to see something in yourself that you probably didn't want to see. Most of us raised financially blind children. I did it too. Let's talk about how. I grew up in a house where talking about money was treated like some kind of social disease. We weren't desperately poor, but we weren't comfortable either. There was just never quite enough. And no one ever explained why. Because money was not a topic. Money was something the adults whispered about behind closed doors and then pretended didn't exist at dinner. It was a man's subject. That's what was understood without ever being said. My mother had no idea what my father earned. Not a ballpark, not a range. My grandmother, a sharp woman, sharper than anyone gave her credit for, never had a bank account in her own name. Not once in her entire life. That was normal. That was just the shape of things. I didn't question it. Why would I? I was a child. Children absorb what's around them like a sponge and then spend the rest of their lives wringing it out. I married at 26, divorced at 31. And in those 5 years, I had done something I'm not proud of. I had become my mother. Not in the bad ways. She was a good woman. In the financial way, the dependent way. When I signed those divorce papers, I could not have told you what a mortgage cost, what compound interest meant, or how much money I needed per month to keep 2 children fed and housed. I was a good cook, a good listener, a patient mother. I was, financially speaking, an absolute mess. And the terrifying part, I didn't even know it. I remember the exact moment it hit me. 3 weeks after the divorce, kitchen table, a notebook I'd bought at the drugstore, and a pen that kept skipping. I sat down to figure out my life, and the first question I wrote at the top of the page was, how much money do I actually need to live? And I sat there, and I sat there some more, and I could not answer it. Not approximately, not roughly, not even in the right neighborhood. 31 years old, 2 children depending on me, and I had no idea what my own life cost. I want you to sit with that for a second because it still bothers me. That wasn't the marriage's fault. That wasn't my ex-husband's fault. That was the direct result of growing up in a house where money was never, ever discussed. No one taught me. And I hadn't thought to learn on my own, because why would you learn a language that everyone around you acts like doesn't exist? That day, I made a promise to myself, the first promise I actually kept as an adult. I will never again not know this. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how embarrassing it is. I'm going to learn how this works. And then I went and made a spectacular series of mistakes. Because that's how it goes. There was a phone call. I was about 34. I had gotten a little braver, a little more willing to ask questions, and I called a bank to talk about my savings. The advisor started explaining the difference between a regular savings account and an interest-bearing account, and I nodded on the phone. I was literally nodding at a phone. I said, Yes, I see. That makes sense. Absolutely, for 10 minutes straight. And I did not understand one word he said. Not one. I hung up, put the phone down, and stared at the wall. Not because I was stupid. I want to be very clear about that. I was not stupid. I had run a household, raised 2 children, managed schedules that would make most people cry. I was not stupid. I was uninformed. And there is a massive, insulting, inexcusable difference between those 2 things. Money has its own language. And if no one teaches you that language when you're young, you spend your adult life either faking it or losing money you didn't have to lose, or both. That's the thing nobody announces. Nobody sits you down and says, by the way, there is an entire vocabulary of wealth that some people learn as children and others never learn at all. And that gap will cost you. Nobody says that. I learned eventually. It took longer than it should have. It cost more than it should have. But I learned. And when my children were growing up, I did what any reasonable person does. I taught them what I knew, which at the time was still not enough. I taught them to be responsible, dependable, hardworking, honest. Everything my mother taught me. Everything that made them good people and financially kept them exactly where I had been. For years, I thought that was enough. Good values, strong work ethic, a sense of responsibility. I thought I had done my job. And then my daughter turned 38 and called me on a Sunday, and I realized I had done half my job. The half that makes them pleasant to be around. The other half, the financial half, I had left completely blank. Here's the thing I had never questioned until that phone call. We raised her to be reliable, to be someone others can count on. And in financial terms, you know what that makes you? An excellent employee. Someone who shows up, meets deadlines, follows instructions, doesn't cause problems. That is a beautiful quality in a human being. It is a disastrous quality as a financial identity. Because reliable people, dependable, trustworthy, responsible people, make wonderful assets for other people's businesses. And Terrible architects of their own freedom. I see this everywhere. I see it in my friends' children, in my neighbors, in people half my age who are brilliant and capable and completely at the mercy of whoever signs their paycheck. We are raising excellent employees, people who know exactly how to execute someone else's vision and have no idea how to build their own. Now, and I want to be careful here because I'm not some lunatic telling you to quit your job and become an entrepreneur or whatever the hell people are selling these days. Working is not the problem. The problem is working because you have no other option. There is a difference between choosing to work and being trapped into it. That difference is called financial freedom, and it is built deliberately, over time, with specific knowledge that most people never get, because no one teaches it. Not at home, not at school, not anywhere really, unless you're lucky enough to be born into a family where it's discussed openly. And most of us weren't. When I was 35, I didn't know what a passive income asset was. I'm not exaggerating. That phrase meant nothing to me. It wasn't in my vocabulary. At 42, I bought my first property to rent out, not to live in, not to fix up and flip, just to own and rent. The real estate agent thought I was making a mistake. My sister thought I was losing my mind. One of my friends asked if I was going through something. I was going through something. I was going through becoming a different person. The first month that a check arrived, a check I had not worked for that week, had not clocked hours for, had not traded a single Tuesday afternoon for, I held it and I just laughed. It wasn't a big check. It was embarrassingly modest, honestly. But it arrived on its own, and something cracked open in my brain that has never fully closed. Because that check asked me a question no boss, no job, no salary had ever asked me. What if you didn't have to be there for the money to come? What if the money moved without you? I spent the next 15 years answering that question, and the answer changed my life, my finances, and, much later than it should have, my relationship with my children. Because here's what I had been doing wrong all along. I had been rewarding the wrong things. When my daughter cleaned up without being asked, good girl. When my son finished his homework early, that's how it's done. When either of them was helpful, cooperative, useful, praise, approval, a warm look from mom, and I never, not once in all those years, asked either of them what they wanted to own, not what they wanted to do for work, not what they wanted to study. What did they want to own? What did they want to possess? What did they want to build and have and control? Nobody ever asked me that either. I grew up being told, without words, that owning things was for other people, rich people, people who weren't us. Money was something that passed through the house, came in on Friday, gone by Monday, never really yours. That belief, that quiet, unspoken, inherited belief, does not announce itself. It just lives in you. And my children absorbed it from me, even as I was busy unlearning it myself. Because I hadn't finished unlearning it when they were small. I was still in the middle of it. There's something I need to say that I'm not proud of. For most of my adult life, I was financially reliable for everyone except myself. I paid my bills on time. I never let my children go without. I was there when family needed money. I was responsible and dependable and all those lovely words. And my own financial goals were consistently, reliably, embarrassingly last. Every single time. There was always something more urgent. Someone else who needed it more. Some crisis that took priority. And I told myself that was selflessness. That's not selflessness. That's a habit dressed up in virtue. My children watched that. They saw me be generous with everyone and quietly neglect myself. And they learned it. Not because I lectured them about it, Because children don't learn what you lecture them about. They learn what they see you do on a Wednesday at 7 p.m. when you think they're not paying attention. When my daughter was about 25, she came to me wanting money for a business idea. I said no, not because I didn't have it, I had it. I could have handed it over without a second thought. But I didn't, because I wanted to see what she understood about her own idea. So I asked her, "Why do you need this exact amount? What happens if the business doesn't work? What's your plan for the money you already have?" She couldn't answer, not clearly, not with any real confidence. And that moment, that quiet, uncomfortable moment, was one of the saddest of my life. Not because she failed the test, because I had never given her the test before. I had raised her to ask for permission instead of understanding risk, to wait for someone with more resources to give her the green light, to be dependent on a more powerful adult as the precondition for movement. That was me at 25. She was doing exactly what she had learned. Money gets taught at the kitchen table, or it doesn't get taught. Not in school. God help us, not in school. Not in a book you buy because you feel guilty. In the daily, boring, uncomfortable conversations that most parents avoid because they're awkward, or they don't know enough themselves. In my home growing up, money was taboo. In the home where I raised my children, it was uncomfortable. Better, but not good enough. I accept that. Mental poverty outlasts financial poverty, and it travels from parents to children with the efficiency of a virus and the silence of a secret. I need to say something about time because I wasted too much of it, and I'm still a little angry about it. I spent years saying yes to things I should have said no to. Not dramatically, not in any way that made headlines. Just the slow, steady, relentless yes to every request, every favor, everything that needed doing that wasn't on my list. And every yes I gave to someone else was a no I gave to myself. I didn't understand that until I was well into my 40s. My children saw me say no more as I got older, and they did not like it. They thought I was becoming selfish, cold, difficult. Darling, I was becoming honest. There's a difference. The woman who says yes to everything isn't generous. She's afraid. She's been trained to put herself last and call it a virtue. I stopped calling it a virtue. What I did eventually, and wish I had done sooner, was teach them how money moves, not just how money is made. Because those are two completely different educations. Making money means you trade time for it. You show up, you work, you get paid. Stop showing up. Stop getting paid. Moving money means understanding that it can travel from your account into an asset, from that asset into income, without you having to be in the room. That second thing is the thing no one teaches. I didn't learn it until my 40s. I didn't fully understand it until my 50s. By 55, I had businesses generating income I hadn't personally worked for that month. At 35, I didn't know that was available to someone like me. And that gap, that 20-year gap of not knowing, cost me in ways I can still calculate. The mindset took so long to change because no one had installed it in me when I was young. I had to find it myself, challenge every belief I'd inherited about who gets to be wealthy and why, and decide that a divorced woman with 2 children and a notebook at a kitchen table was as qualified as anyone. Turns out, she was. What I wanted for my children, what I still want, is for them to reach 50 with choices, real choices. The choice to stay in a job because they genuinely love it, not because leaving would ruin them. The choice to walk away from something that doesn't serve them without the whole thing falling apart. The choice to build something of their own without needing someone else to hand them the materials. That kind of life doesn't come from being kind. It comes from understanding money, from making decisions before you're ready, from having the conversation that makes everyone at the table uncomfortable. If I could do one thing differently, just one, I would not have taught them more about money. I would have started earlier. The first time my daughter pointed at something in a store window, I should have said, "Let's talk about how we'd get that. Not let's buy it, not we can't afford it. Let's talk about how that works." I would have taught them that money is a tool, not glamorous, not shameful, not magical. A tool. One that builds things when you know how to use it and destroys things when you don't. I would have taught them the difference between earning and owning, between spending and investing, between consuming and building. And I would have asked them questions they didn't have easy answers to, because easy answers don't prepare you for anything. My children are fine. I want to say that clearly. They're smart, capable, functioning adults who have built their own lives. But they did not build them using what I taught them about money. They built them despite what I taught them. And despite is not the same as because. That difference, that one word, sits with me. Money is still a whispered subject in too many homes. Still treated like something vulgar or too complicated or not appropriate for the dinner table. And that silence has a price. It doesn't show up for years. It shows up when your kid is 40 and doesn't know what to do with their first real surplus. It shows up when they have options in front of them and no framework to evaluate them. It shows up in the phone call on a Sunday afternoon. "I found this knowledge late. My children found it after me." If you have children still in your house, still watching you, still absorbing everything you do and say and leave unsaid, you have time I didn't use well. Don't give them money, give them the language. Because with the language, they can get the money themselves. And that is the only kind of wealth that no one can take from them. Before I go, and I have places to be, I always have places to be. 2 questions. I want you to answer them honestly, even if the honest answer is uncomfortable, especially if it's uncomfortable. Do your children know right now exactly how much it costs to run the house they live in? Not roughly. Exactly. And do they know, with that same specificity, how they could generate income without trading hours for it? Those 2 questions will tell you everything you need to know about what's been taught and what hasn't. I was past 30 before I could answer them myself. I'm not going to tell you what to do with that information. You're an adult. Figure it out.